Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Together please Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Praeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nestiki. Hare Krishna. This morning we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 12, verses 1 to 16. In the previous chapter, so this is a conversation between Narad Muni and Yudhishthir Maharaj. And Narad Muni has recently concluded the beautiful pastime of Prahlad Maharaj and Lord Nrsingadev. And then in the previous chapter, Narad Muni describes the Varna system of social division, which is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and their respective qualities and activities. And now in this chapter, Narad Muni discusses the 4 stages of spiritual advancement in the 4 ashramas of life, which is Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. So the first 16 verses that we will discuss today deal with instructions for brahmacharis and grihasthas. And I believe that makes most of us in this room. So it is very relevant for all of us, very instructive and educational. We'll just start with some prayers. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This mic is really nice. Is it new? Is it new? Oh, wow. So the way we will do this is our main verse for today's text 10. So let's go chronologically from text 1 to 10. Translations and maybe a few comments on each verse, and then we can elaborate on text 10. So we can go around, maybe start with translations.
Narada Muni said, a student should practice completely controlling his senses. He should be submissive and should have an attitude of firm friendship for the spiritual master. With a great vow, the brahmachari should live at the Gurukul only for benefit of the Guru.
So here something really nice that stood out was the verse says Guru Hitam, which means only for the benefit of the Guru. The last line, only for the benefit of the Guru. And it made me think of a recent conversation I had with one of my mentors, who is a senior God sister of mine. And she said that our aspiration as devotees in this movement should be to develop an identity, or our only identity should be that we are disciples of our Guru Maharaj and of in the lineage of Srila Prabhupada and this parampara. So our only identity should be that we belong to this disciplic chain, and if we develop that identity more and more, then probably that is how we can please the spiritual master, render some real service. So the first instruction, or one of the first instructions for brahmacharis, is gurohitam, to work or to live practically only for the benefit of the guru. And then there are some other wonderful qualities mentioned, like dantaha, which is continuously practicing control of the senses, nichaha, being very submissive and obedient. Nicha, the word nicha means very lowly, extremely low, so being very submissive. Sudridaha, having a firm vow. And sahrida, being in friendship or as a well-wisher of the guru. So right from birth, because brahmacharya, according to the Vedic system, is right from birth to the age of 25. So the idea is that a child is trained in these beautiful qualities right from birth, so that a very strong spiritual foundation is set, from which then the child can explore the rest, or the person can explore the rest of life, be it marriage life, be it work, be it any duties, any activities. Once they have a 25 years of solid foundation and training, then from that they can really excel spiritually. Srila Prabhupada, in one talk related to this verse, he said, the whole Vedic civilization is on the basis of controlling the senses. The yoga practice, it is also meant for controlling the senses. Yoga indriya samayama. By some artificial bodily exercise, one can control the senses. That is called yoga. But one who becomes directly a devotee, his sense control is automatically done if he is devotee. If one is devotee, then he does not like anything material. So we will go through a lot of instructions for controlling the senses. It's meant for brahmacharis, meant for students in Krishna consciousness. But Prabhupada kind of gives us the essence and the power of bhakti, that if one follows bhakti, if one is deeply engaged in the process of principles of devotional service, then one need not make separate endeavor or separate rules and regulations to control the senses, because he said when one becomes a devotee, his sense control is automatically done. But then the question that it's a test for all of us, that how much are we losing taste for sense pleasure, or how much sense control are we developing? Because it can be easy sometimes to say that, oh, I'm a devotee, I don't need to practice any austerity or any sense control externally. But then are we naturally disinclined from sense enjoyment? Next verse, please.
At both junctions of day and night, namely in the early morning and in the evening, he should be fully absorbed in thoughts of the spiritual master, fire, the sun god, and Lord Vishnu, and by chanting the Gayatri mantra, he should worship them.
Another thing that I really liked here is that a brahmachari should be fully absorbed in the thoughts of the spiritual master. So along with these external rules, there's also something internal going on. There is also a more personal and emotional activity going on, which is the student is being trained to be absorbed in the thoughts of the spiritual master. Because no matter how much we withdraw externally, but if there is no internal attachment to a divine personality, then it will be misplaced. Our austerity will not mean much, or will not lead to much if there is not an ongoing internal absorption going on. So being absorbed in the thoughts of the Guru is one of the primary instructions given by Narad Muni. Next translation, please.
Being called by the spiritual master, the student should study the Vedic mantras regularly. Every day before beginning his studies and at the end of his studies, the disciple should respectfully offer obeisances unto the spiritual master.
Next.
Text 4. Carrying pure kusha grass in his hand, the brahmachari should dress regularly with a belt of straw and with deerskin garments. He should wear matted hair, carry a rod and water pot, and be decorated with the sacred thread as recommended in the Shastras.
So these are some ways Narad Muni suggests that a brahmachari should externally appear and dress up physically. Now, these are obviously based on time, place, and situation. It changes with time. In our sampradaya, in our parampara, we don't wear deer skin, we don't have matted hair. But the principle is to dress simply, to appear simply, not put much focus on the body. Next, please.
The brahmachari should go out morning and evening to collect alms, and he should offer all that he collects to the spiritual master. He should eat only if ordered to take food by the spiritual master. Otherwise, if the spiritual master does not give this order, he may sometimes have to fast.
So whatever a brahmachari collects, whatever student collects through begging alms, it is suggested that he give everything to the spiritual master, not only 50%, but everything to the spiritual master. And even wait for the spiritual master's instruction or permission to eat food. So in other words, this means that it is suggested that a student living under the shelter of the spiritual master should completely depend on the spiritual master for their maintenance. This idea of dependence is very important in spiritual life, because the brahmachari is trained not at all to have any dependence on the self, that I can do this, I can earn for myself, I can provide for myself, because that then is the root, the root ideology that then expands into the idea of me being the doer, me being the caretaker of myself, my family. So if since beginning there is a training that I am completely dependent on my guru for my dependence, for my maintenance, then that ideology is very, very conducive for spiritual life. Text 6.
A brahmachari should be quite well behaved and gentle, and should not eat or collect more than necessary. He must always be active and expert, fully believing in the instructions of the spiritual master and the Shastra. Fully controlling his senses, he should associate only as much as necessary with women or those controlled by women.
This is a very important verse. I like how it begins, that a brahmachari, the word used is sushila. A brahmachari should be very well behaved and gentle. Now we may see a lot of times that a lot of renunciants, or some renunciants, or just in general devotees who are trying to practice sense control, who are trying to practice not interacting much with the opposite sex, sometimes they become hard-hearted, and sometimes they can appear to be rude or not gentle. So the very first instruction here is sushila, that the brahmachari should be polite, well-behaved, and gentle. Because detachment or sense control is an internal activity. It does not need to translate into external rudeness or external unfriendly behavior. So if one must interact with the opposite sex, it should be gentle, it should be polite, as Narad Muni says for brahmacharis. But, however, the instruction ultimately is that one should avoid unnecessary interaction with women. For male brahmacharis, should only in terms of preaching or begging alms, or only for any service if there is interaction needed, then they must do that, and they should avoid other interactions, and not only with women but also other people who are so very attached to women. Even their association must be given up. Another very interesting thing is the word comes in Sanskrit jita indriya, which means having complete control over the senses. Now, after jita indriya, Narad Muni mentions that one should avoid association with women. So it's very interesting that even if one is completely sense controlled and one has complete control over the senses, even then one should avoid such interactions or putting oneself in a position by which one can be agitated. Because we've seen in the past many sages who were completely sense controlled. Even they fell to lusty desires and they engaged in lusty desires. So that is a very important instruction. Next translation, please. Text 7.
Brahmachari, or one who has not accepted the grasta ashram family life, must rigidly avoid talking with women or about women, for the senses are so powerful that they may agitate even the mind of a sannyasi, a member of the renounced order of life.
So here is further emphasis on the previous point of avoiding association with the opposite sex. And another point is added here that one should avoid even talking about them, not just talking to them, but talking about them. Text 8.
If the wife of the spiritual master is young, a young brahmachari should not allow her to care for his hair, massage his body with oil, or bathe him with affection like a mother.
This is a brahmachari is being instructed on how to deal with the spiritual master's wife. According to the Vedas, there are 7 mothers, one of which is the guru's wife. So if a guru's wife is young, then the brahmachari should avoid having physical interaction with her. Even if he considers her a mother, even then it should be avoided. If the brahmachari, especially in younger ages, because brahmacharya starts very young, 5 years old. So sometimes the guru's wife might take care as a mother, but then Text 9.
Women is compared to fire, and man is compared to a butter pot. Therefore, a man should avoid associating even with his own daughter in a secluded place. Similarly, he should also avoid association with other women. One should associate with women only for important business and not otherwise.
So here, the nature of the interaction between a man and woman is explained, where when a man and woman come together, the interaction is in a way that the woman is compared to a fire and the man is compared to a butter pot. Because with that interaction, Prabhupada says in the purport that the man or the butter is certain to melt. Certain. It will melt. So therefore, this analogy is given, and can we scroll up once? And similarly, one should also avoid other women, even with his own daughter. And we have the story of Lord Brahma being agitated by his own daughter. So one may think that how can I ever be attracted to my own family? But it's not about us, it's about the senses being so degraded and so easily agitated that it is suggested that one should not even be with one's own family members of the opposite gender in a private setting. Next verse. verse number 10. Now we will do the Sanskrit for this, so we can open. Kalpayitvatmana yavad abhasam idamishvaraha dvaitam tavanna viramet tato hyasya viparyaya. Please repeat. Kalpayitvatmana yavad abhasamidamishvaraha tvaitam tavanna viramet tato hyasya viparyaya. Kalpayitvatmana yavad abhasamidamishvara virat. Synonyms together. Kalpayatva, ascertaining positively. Atmana, by self-realization. Yavat, as long as. Abhasam, reflection of the original body and senses. Idam, this, the body and senses. Ishvaraha, completely independent of illusion. Dvaitam, duality. Tavat, for that long. Na, does not. Viramet, see. Tataha, by such duality. He, indeed. Asya, of the person. Viparyayaha, counteraction. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. As long as a living entity is not completely self-realized, as long as he is not independent of the misconception of identifying with his body, which is nothing but a reflection of the original body and senses, he cannot be relieved of the conception of duality, which is epitomized by the duality between man and woman. Thus, there is every chance that he will fall down, because his intelligence is bewildered. Can someone read the purport, please?
Here is another important warning that a man must save himself from attraction to women. Until one is self-realized, fully independent of the illusionary conception of the material body, the duality of man and women must undoubtedly continue. But one who is actually self-realized, this distinction ceases. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini shuni chaiva swapake pandita samadarshinaha. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater, or an outcast. Bhagavad Gita 5.18. On the spiritual platform, the learned person not only gives up the duality of man and women, but also gives up the duality of man and animal. This is the test of self-realization. One must realize soul, but is tasting various types of material bodies. One may theoretically understand this, but one has practical realization. Then he actually becomes a pandita, one who knows. Until that time, the duality continues, and the conception of man and women also continues. In this stage, one should be extremely careful about mixing with women. No one should think himself perfect and forget the Shastric injunction that one should be very careful about associating even with his daughter, mother, or sister, not to speak of other women. Srila Madhvacharya cites the following shlokas in this regard. Bahutvenaiva vastunam yathartha gnanamuchyate advaita gnanam ityedadvaita gnanam tadanyata yatha gnanam tata vastus tata matihi naiva gnanarthayor bhedas tata ekatva vedanam. Unity in variety is real knowledge, and therefore giving up variety artificially does not reflect perfect knowledge of monism. According to the Achintya Bheda philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there are varieties, but all of them constitute one unit. Such knowledge is knowledge of perfect oneness.
Amazing. So now Narad Muni, verses 1 to 9 deal with a lot of external do's and don'ts and rules and regulations, but now Narad Muni is giving us a deeper philosophical rationale behind all these rules. There is an underlying essence that why should we do this? And the idea is not just for the sake of following these rules, but to guard against the danger of identifying with the body. That's the deeper aspect of this verse. That because a lot of times what can happen is that such mentality or practicing such rules and do's and don'ts can lead one to develop aversion for the opposite sex or develop aversion for things that one should avoid in spiritual life for growth. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that raga, dvesha, attachment and aversion, both are harmful in spiritual life. So we don't want to develop a distaste or an aversion for anything. The idea here is simply that Narad Muni says is to overcome or to rise above the duality of male and female, duality of man. Prabhupada says in the purport, even man and animal, to be able to see that everyone is a spirit soul, eternal servant of Krishna. That is the ultimate goal of following these principles described by Narad Muni. Srila Prabhupada says in one of the purports that the ultimate result of devotional service is to develop genuine love for the Supreme Personality. Love is a word which is often used in relation with man and woman. And love is the only word that can be properly used to indicate the relation between Lord Krishna and the living entities. And what Prabhupada is telling us is that this natural affection between man and woman exists, but it is simply misplaced love, because this love is meant for the jiva and Paramatma, between Krishna and the jiva. So this original eternal love that we have for Krishna is perverted and misplaced in this material world as attraction and as attachment to the opposite sex. It is said that sexual pleasure is the highest known pleasure to man in this material world, because it is the closest pleasure perverted that in terms of love of God. So when love of God is perverted in this material world, it takes the form of sexual attachment and sexual pleasure. Because we are all considered Prakriti, feminine in nature, and the only real man or the only real Purusha is Krishna. And so ultimately we are to be enjoyed by Krishna. But that duality is misrepresented in this world as the attraction where we are trying to be Krishna. We are trying to be the enjoyers, trying to enjoy the opposite sex. Prabhupada says elsewhere, the affection between the Lord and the living entities is something like that between the male and the female, Therefore, the term love of Godhead is quite appropriate. We will now quickly read verses 11 to 16.
All the rules and regulations apply equally to the householder and the sannyasi, the member of the renounced order of life. The grihasta, however, is given permission by the spiritual master to indulge in sex during the period favorable for procreation.
So here Narad Muni begins his instructions for grihastas. He says that a lot of instructions that were meant for brahmacharis also apply to grihastas, because even in grihasta life, one can be, or one is ideally a brahmachari. And the gold standard for grihastha ashram is given, where one should engage in sex only for procreation. Next. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Brahmacharis or grihasthas who have taken the vow of celibacy, as described above, should not indulge in the following: applying powder or ointment to the eyes, massaging the head with oil, massaging the body with the hands, seeing a woman or painting a woman's picture, eating meat, drinking wine, decorating the body with flower garlands, smearing scented ointment on the body, or decorating the body with ornaments. These they should give up.
Next, please.
According to the rules and regulation mentioned above, one who is twice born, namely a Brahmana, Kshatriya and Vaishya, should reside in a Gurukul under the care of the spiritual master. There he should study and learn all the Vedic literatures along with their supplements and the Upanishad according to his ability and power to study. If possible, the student or disciple should reward the spiritual master with the remuneration the spiritual master requests, and then following the master's order, the disciple should leave and accept one of the other ashrams, namely the Grihastha ashram, Vanaprastha ashram, or Sannyasa ashram as he desired.
Next verse, please.
One should realize that in the fire, in the spiritual master, in oneself and in all living entities, in all circumstances and conditions, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, has simultaneously entered and not entered. He is situated externally and internally as the full controller of everything.
Next, please.
By practicing in this way, whether one be in the brahmachari ashram, grihastha ashram, vanaprastha ashram, or sannyasa ashram, one must always realize the all-pervading presence of the Supreme Lord, for in this way it is possible to understand the absolute truth.
Wonderful. Here, again, Narad Muni, after saying some instructions for grihasthas, he again concludes on a philosophical, deeper aspect. It's very interesting that verse number 10, he first says that the principle or the essence is to realize the non-duality between the bodies and really come to the self-realization of the soul. And now in verses 15 and 16, he says that one should realize Paramatma, one should realize the all-pervading aspect of Krishna. So realizing oneself and realizing Krishna are the ultimate goals of all these different rules and regulations, as suggested by Narad Muni. Prabhupada says in relation to this that human life is meant for tapasya, austerity. Tapo divyam putraka yena shuddhyet sattva, Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.1. That this human form of life is meant for tapasya, not to live like cats and dogs. The very beginning of creation starts with tapasya, where Brahma is instructed, when he was lost and confused, he was instructed tapa. And when he engages in deep austerity, in deep meditation, and then he receives all knowledge and darshan of Krishna. And we say, even in our Vaishnava culture, in the history in Bhagavatam, so many personalities went through intense voluntary tapasya. Starting with Parikshit Maharaj, he was going to die, he started with tapasya. Let me end my life with tapasya of listening, giving up eating, sleeping, all of the activities. I just want to engage in hearing about Krishna. Dhruva Maharaj took up voluntary tapasya. Chitraketu Maharaj took up voluntary tapasya because he was so devastated by the death of his beloved son. And the only relief was to develop a relationship with Krishna. And so he engaged in voluntary tapasya for several months. And then he got amazing results. And so unlimited personalities we see, unlimited stories where devotees went through voluntary austerity in spiritual life. And without that, I think that there is not much hope for us if we cannot take some inconvenience voluntarily in spiritual life, because according to our karma, we have to go through suffering. But if we can do something bona fide, mentioned in the scriptures as austerity, not something self-concocted, but something approved, then that really pleases Krishna. Not because Krishna likes to see us suffer, but because Krishna sees that here is a person trying really hard to overcome bodily attachment. Because all tapasya is ultimately meant to help us rise from the deep-rooted concept of this is me, this body is me. And therefore Bhagavatam says that great personalities sometimes undergo voluntary austerity for the greater benefit of mankind, even not just one's own self, but even for the benefit of mankind. Like Prabhupada did. He took up voluntary tapasya to come to US, go through so many challenges, just so that some people can maybe benefit from the teachings of Krishna. So any ashram, voluntary austerity is there. And it's very interesting that, Narad Muni, he speaks about this tapasya initially and then comes to the philosophical realization aspect. And it's really interesting that only yesterday I had this experience where after work I had a workout in the gym, and somehow I overdid it, and I did not take any liquids, any water with me. So as I completed my workout and went to the changing room, my blood sugar drastically dropped, and I was feeling dizzy. My eyes were blanking out, my body was shivering, and I could not move. And in that moment, I know it sounds absurd, but in that moment, my mind couldn't help but think that, oh, I'm dying, because it's such an intense experience. Anyone who's experienced hypotension, that just my mind was blanking out. It seemed like, is this what death looks like? Is this, because I've heard of so many people who out of nowhere pass out and die. So just maybe it was paranoia. I was thinking like that. And it is embarrassing, but it's the reality that the very first thought that I had was extreme fear. I felt that I don't want to die. I'm not ready for death. And for the first time probably in life, I was face to face with my deep attachment for this body. I theoretically understood that I'm not this body, and always I thought that maybe I would think that I'm not someone who's afraid of death. I would welcome death if it comes. But yesterday when my mind felt that for a bit, I was deeply fearful. And so, my dear devotees, I feel, I can speak for myself, but this attachment for the body is so deep-rooted that even after years of hearing and practicing, it does not really go away easily. And therefore, the entire principle of brahmachari life, of the varnas, ashrams, the whole principle is to purify our mind of this deep attachment from the body. What to speak of attachment with other bodies? It just keeps expanding and expanding. Family, friends, expansion of family. And so it's really, really important. The very first instruction is to realize that I am not this body and the soul. And all these processes are aimed simply at that realization. Because from that realization, then maybe we can come to a point of understanding Krishna and realizing our relationship with Krishna. And maybe performing some real, actual, heartfelt devotional service. His Holiness Sachinandan Swami, he was once speaking with another god brother, and he said that, Maharaj, I conduct all these different japa workshops, and I train devotees on how to sit properly, how to perform different, sometimes he also teaches physical exercises that help one to chant good japa. So Sachinandan Swami said, I teach all these rules and regulations and do's and don'ts to my students in these japa workshops, but I understand that Krishna is not pleased by these rules and regulations and by these practices of self-regulation. But I can at least show Krishna that I care by performing these austerities. So even if we dislike, we can show Krishna that I care by performing some austerity, some voluntary hardships. And therefore I would end by quoting this beautiful verse from Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Rupa Goswami says, Yena tena prakarena manaha Krishna niveshayet sarve vidhi nishedhasya etavyoreva kinkara. That all rules and regulations are servants of this one principle, that somehow or the other, yena tena prakarena, we must engage our mind at the lotus feet of Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Sorry, I think I went a little overboard, but we have 5 minutes for any questions, comments, feedback. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Nartaru. Nice class. I have a comment and a question. So comment is, in relation to the very first verse about the brahmachari living in the Gurukul only for the benefit of the Guru, and also related to how he should, day and night, morning and evening, meditate on the Guru. And I was thinking that, to meditate on the Guru is not just to, look at his picture and remember his person, but it's really to meditate on the instructions of the Guru, the mission of the Guru, and to live for the benefit of the Guru, to show up, for the present benefit of the Guru means to apply, serve his mission, like do whatever is within our power to carry out the mission. So like Srila Prabhupada is our founder Acharya, so he has a huge mission, right? To spread the holy name to every town and village of the world. That was Lord Chaitanya's mission that Prabhupada is carrying out in the Western world. And all of his disciples, our gurus, are servants in that mission. So I feel like, a lot of this it can look like, you live there in the house with the Guru and you get firewood for him, or you, do menial services for him, chop potatoes for him or whatever. But the real thing is the mission. Of course, chopping potatoes may be part of the mission for sadham distribution. But I think for us it's more relevant to identify, like you said, to identify not just that I'm a disciple of this Guru, but I am a servant of the mission, my Guru's mission. Yeah. And that's who I am, and that's what I do, and my time, my energy, my resources go into that. Right? That was my comment. And then I just thought that's a nice meditation. So when we meditate on Guru, we're meditating, how can I fulfill the mission of my Guru, which is to fulfill the Srila Prabhupada's mission? What is my contribution? And then the other thing was in relation to a brahmachari or even a grihasta's relationship with women. It's very, Narada Muni is pointing out how that has to be very restricted and just kind of business only, and Prabhupada talked about that too. But I was thinking, what about in the case where, a man has a female mentor, right? Like even you started off saying that you were having a discussion with a senior god sister, right? About something, and I got the sense that you have a close relationship, that you open your heart to her, and you know, you share thoughts and feelings about spiritual life and your guru and stuff. So yeah, is that like an exception to this, or how should one relate with I guess Vaishnavis who are senior and possibly mentors?
I think it is very much accepted in even in Gaudiya culture. We see that the Goswamis and a lot of devotees were closely serving Sachi Mata, and even personally serving Sachi Mata, bringing her food, bringing her things, spending time with her, receiving shiksha from, and then also, we have Chanva Mata, so I think it is not uncommon in our tradition to have that shiksha relationship with the opposite gender, as long as obviously there is external appropriateness in terms of not physically being in the same space alone, as long as we respect those external ideas or principles of appropriate behavior, as also described here. I think if it's only a relationship, if it's a relationship of care and shiksha and service, I don't see, from my knowledge, I don't see any problem with that.
Thank you for nice class. Mataji, it's very controversial in ISKCON because the point you brought, I remember when I was brahmachari, who was filming in Srila Prabhupada Abhacharan in New York. Jadhavar Prabhu, myself, Kala Prabhu's daughter Sita, she was Prabhupada's disciple daughter. I was brahmachari, so I was really like, so Jadhavar Prabhu was the front, another devotee, so Sita was sitting in the middle, so I have to sit with her. And I reject to go with her to New York, to New Jersey. And then she came to His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, New Jersey, where we are staying. And then she complained badly that she got hurt, that I did not travel with her on that car. And then Guru Maharaj, after that, chastised me that you don't understand what family means. When you have a family in India background, then it's family of ISKCON. So you have to deal with it. I know it is some sort of protection for yourself, but she got hurted in that situation, and you also need to come from New York. So anyhow, so after then, I tried to do some little adjustment of that situation, but it was not really done well for me. So for 2008, 8 years, I was my brahmachari life in America. So then after Guru Maharaj chastisement, I tried to balance the ISKCON family. This is a work it out. So I think it's more safer that you was a brahmachari, I'm brahmachari, it's okay. So I have to protect myself. But instead of you think about whole society, then you take little risk that yes, there I need to, as a family member, deal with something. There are some risks. So this is a society we are now, so we have to a little bit adjust, although it is sometimes a risk. Then yourself, protect yourself as a brahmachari, and more important, you say the mission, that we should be committed to the mission. So I was committed when Guru Maharaj said to that, you should be, as a family of ISKCON, you should. So I try to focus on that because it's his instruction. So anyhow, so another point is that Janaba Mataji, this what Mataji said, that time actually after all the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left, Nityananda Prabhu left, first program was Gaur Purnima is Kheturi, where Narottam Das Thakur birthplace. Jahannava Mata was leading whole program, but she was not in the front.
Mm-hmm.
She was in the behind with the other women, sitting like, but there all the leading devotees coming, taking instruction from her, taking guidance from her, but she was not came in the front, nothing. She followed the same time. She was leading, but she also same time followed the, as a Gaudiya, the culture of the Boitik way it is. So it is a kind of more things that follow the Shastra, what they did instruction through their life. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. I think, yeah. I was just thinking I think it really comes down to two aspects. Is like one is personal choice, how one feels internally, wants to follow this, and then also we see Prabhupada actually pushed a lot of women towards the front. Yamuna Devi, so much service, and he went out of his way, out of the set tradition to actually promote and push women actively in service. But yeah, I think it's just different choices, personally, maybe. I think, did you? Okay.
Yeah, it's obviously a very, debated topic in many ways, but I was thinking that, these rules and regulations are here to kind of protect us in a sense. We have this kind of protection of being cautious in certain ways because obviously there's a risk if we're too overly familiar with each other. And then at the same time, we have a mission to spread Krishna consciousness, and especially in the West, if our mood is that, women are in the back and men are in the front, then it's gonna be like a barrier for many people to join our society. And you see in Prabhupada's time when he first came that he didn't really start with rules and regulations. Mm-hmm. He met devotees where they were at, and he allowed them to grow naturally and mature in their Krishna consciousness. And I think a lot of times we kind of forget this part of Prabhupada's mood in the mission, that we've progressed along as a society, and we just expect that anybody who walks through our door is going to just be where we're at after 50 or 60 years as a movement. Some devotees have been practicing for many, many years like that, and they've taken time to progress in their spiritual life. And so how do we do what Prabhupada came here to do? Give Krishna to everybody, and create an atmosphere and environment that everybody feels welcome, that they can come and start where they're at, because everybody's at a different place. We've all been in the material world for countless lifetimes and conditioned in so many ways, and each one of us in this room can, I'm sure, share our own struggles and difficulties and where we're at in our spiritual progress. So how do we make it open enough that everybody can come and have access to Krishna, and then at the same time, how do we protect ourselves? And so it's not, I think we could spend many hours probably discussing this topic, and it's nice, but I think ultimately we have to see what is pleasing to Guru and Krishna, and how, and I think we can all agree that Prabhupada would be most pleased if we were sharing Krishna with as many people as possible and bringing as many people as possible to Krishna. And so what's most important, and how do we at the same time, protect ourselves along it? So it's complex. Just sharing a few of my thoughts. We could go on for a long time, but if anybody else would like to add.
Yeah, I was just reflecting on experiences where I've been with in a sangha that's of senior devotees, where you're just talking about Krishna, you're just sharing your experiences, and you totally forget about your body. You forget about the gender differences, and you're just devotees. You're just devotees talking about Krishna, talking about the mission, what we can do, how we can serve, what realizations we've had. And then, sometimes you can stay with devotees who are like that for a long time and you just like totally forget anything. And then you'll come across somebody that's like, that's really on the bodily concept of life, and they make you remember that you're different genders and all this stuff. And it's just like, ugh, really? It's like this again, here we are again, back to the square one. I don't know, it's I'm just thinking, wouldn't it be nice if we could just like really transcend this duality, the bodily concept of life. And I think this is why Narada Muni's actually being strict about it, is because and advocating celibacy, because when one's engaging in sex life, then there's nothing more there's nothing that more powerfully puts you on the bodily concept of life than that. If we just look at society, it's like everything that, so much time and energy goes into it, not just the activity of it, but like making oneself, preparing oneself, or trying to make oneself attractive, making oneself sexy or whatever, and fashion and hairstyles and perfumes and behaviors and clothes and everything, like both men and women, they do it. It's like so much energy goes into that. And if people can just be like, you know what, I'm going to be celibate, it's like, it's done. You don't need to do any of that anymore. And you have so much time to serve Krishna and think about Krishna and spend your money on, serving Krishna instead of buying the latest things to try to attract the opposite sex. So it's so important. And after practicing celibacy for, long, like decades, it's like you just kind of forget about it, and you stop seeing people as bodies, and you start actually seeing people as souls, and it's really nice. You can start having conversations just like, all right, we're devotees here and we're trying to serve Krishna and we've got a mission, and let's do it, and you just kind of get over all that stuff. I don't know if anything I said made sense, but yeah. And then you meet somebody who's like, on that bodily level, and it's just like, ugh, really? Yeah. Anyways, my 2 cents there too.
I think my last comment will be that I think I agree with I think kind of what you were saying reminded me of, Prabhupada spent, every lecture almost, practically speaking, that you hear Prabhupada speak, he brings up the point that we're not this body. It like hammers it home over and over and over and over again that we're not this body, we're not this body. And yet, as a society, we spend a lot of time talking about which body we're in and what we can do because we're in this body or that body, and we put so much emphasis on the body, or if I'm Indian or someone's American, or there's so much emphasis put on the externals, when our whole philosophy, the foundation of it is we're not this body. And we sometimes we end up hurting people because we put so much emphasis on it. So that was kind of along the point of what you were saying, I think.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your nice comments and elaborating on this. I think we should end here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.